Jaroslaw will tell us a story about how threat modeling is evolving over a 5-year time span.
That's correct. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, so thank you very much for joining on this Friday evening. So today we are going to talk a little bit about threat modeling, and here definitely what I would like to underline, it's important that I will be speaking from the perspective of information security person. So basically when it comes to agenda, at the beginning I'm going to refer to the advantages of executing threat modeling, and here the important point is that how actually we want to mature our threat modeling over the last 5 years. So I had the pleasure to work on the process from pretty scratch, and I have some observations which I would like to share with all of you. Then we will be talking about threat modeling governance in enterprise, so actually how we can embed security threat modeling within different processes, especially when it comes to engineering. However, also when it comes to benefits from other business units. Then I'm gonna present like a very quick simulation of key participants in threat modeling sessions. So then you will see what are the different functions which can potentially impact the effectiveness of our process. Threat modeling outcomes. So obviously here we will be referring to the fact what actually we can expect from threat modeling, how important is to engage the business. At the end of this, I'm going to give a couple of thoughts regarding how we can mature threat modeling process within the enterprise. And last but not least, obviously, we are living in AI world, so I'm going to give you some very easy test case when it comes to usage of artificial intelligence as an advisory support, let's say like this, within this particular process. So when it comes to myself, my name is Kupczak. I'm Vice President for Information Security at Sportradar. Joined the company 5 years ago and moved here to Austria from Poland. Previously, I was a security consultant as well as private detective, but that's probably a talk for another discussion. And I'm heavily passionate about embedding security controls within the processes, making sure that we understand not only engineering pieces, however, also we can have a look for business parts. So if we are thinking about threat modeling, I think it's incredibly important to highlight what exactly do we want to achieve by executing threat modeling across the enterprise. So one of the first thoughts which I would have is definitely to provide assurance, especially to the leadership team, that we follow some best practices when it comes to secure coding. So basically, the ideal world is that once we can build the threat modeling process within the design level, so once the application is actually being created, then we can make a review from information security perspective and actually validate if security controls which are being applied are accurate. Then improve team engagement within the security-related tasks. So this is something what I think everybody from information security teams are fighting for. So basically, we want to make sure that we raise awareness, that our teams are professionally taking care about security threats, and I believe that threat modeling and popularization of this process within the enterprise is incredibly valuable. Decrease cost and improve time efficiency. Obviously, that's something what requires some significant time. Then you can see that once you start threat modeling, then you are identifying, for example, 30 different vulnerabilities on the level of particular application. And after doing some threat modeling session, then obviously it's getting significantly better, and you can actually measure if the process which you apply is being effective. Detect threats and risk on the early stage of development. So obviously, from InfoSec perspective, incredibly important that we collect security risk, and obviously, the best place is to identify this risk even before they are materialized. So if it's happening on the early stage of software development lifecycle, it's very valuable. Then empower security champions. So obviously, depend on the size of the organization where you are working on and where you're working at. It's incredibly powerful for people who are actually software developers, but they are heavily interested in security topics. They want to make sure that the software which they are building is resilient for potential security threats. And last but not least, which was obviously probably there are significantly more advantages, but what last on my list is security compliance. So here I have a slide where I'm referring to couple of standards, couple of best practices, which are referring directly or indirectly to threat modeling. So everybody who is interested can make a screenshot or picture, and I think we can move forward. So when it comes to maturing the process, so here I have split the thoughts which I have had like 5 years ago, once actually I started being involved in this process in the enterprise level. So at the beginning, we were definitely wanted to make developers aware of application threats. It was incredibly important for us that developers know potential exploitation techniques, that they can provide also some guidelines to information security unit to give us proper visibility and make sure that the risk of potential security incident once the application is on production is being decreased. Obviously, we wanted to also change the organizational mindset, rather facilitate the process of enhancing some technical security awareness, as well as we, as the team which is heavily involved in penetration testing, we also wanted to make sure that our scenarios for penetration tests are being executed effectively. So then we actually can understand what are the key risks and how we can validate them. One of the also most important things for us was that we wanted to train developers as well as security team and increase the collaboration between InfoSec as well as developers. When it comes to the future goals, so basically what is incredibly important right now, that we can find a way how we can measure if this process is actually effective, right? What are the benefits? So from my perspective, it's very important that we can create this in that way that people can consume the data. So basically, for example, Security Operations Center or governance risk compliance can take the data which are coming from threat modeling, and then actually they can demonstrate them for their perspective. Obviously, here we are also referring to implementation of automation or any large models. So then we can potentially enhance some of the controls and also help developers, help security champions to increase their capabilities to commit into the threat modeling. So if we are thinking about threat model, so what actually a good threat model should include? So I would definitely refer to the architecture diagram, so then we can see how application is being built, what are the key components, what are the connections between these components, as well as what are the boundaries. So which parts of the application are actually publicly facing, which one are, for example, available only for customers which are being whitelisted, because this is something what is heavily indicating the risk landscape. Then we obviously expect that threat model should also contain a table with potential threats and scenarios, as well as remediation actions. So then that's something what I'm gonna present a little bit later. Attack surface details, so this is something what is not described, for example, in the methodologies like Stride or PASTA. However, it's incredibly valuable that we can demonstrate that, for example, during reviewing threat modeling, we can see that, for example, the particular part of the infrastructure is publicly available. Internal control capabilities. So within the threat modeling, we are also reviewing what are the controls which we can apply. For example, if the particular application has enough login capabilities, or perhaps if we can easily execute access reviews of users on this application. When it comes to building the governance over threat modeling. So obviously there are 5 high-level points which I have listed. So firstly, we talk about defining methodology. So obviously the most popular is Stride. We also have attack tree or PASTA. Once it's already described, once it's already selected, then we need to think how we can embed this process into some engineering processes. For example, this one within which engineering team is evaluating the application before being launched, right? And then we can refer to threat modeling into our information security management system. So it can help us to actually enforce some of the controls, report them into the, for example, board of directors or any other committee as a KPIs. Then we want to also enable people to consume threat modeling outcomes. So as I have mentioned before, our goal is to make sure that threat modeling is being consumed by multiple teams, especially security, but also it might be also useful from product team perspective, and this is something what I'm gonna mention a little bit later. And last but not least, is the fact that we also need to think about KPIs, what actually we should measure in order to validate the effectiveness of the process. So here I'm going to demonstrate some very high-level software development lifecycle and the potential security controls which we can apply within this process. So if you start from the red one, where we talk about request for change, imagine that we are executing some significant change within our application, then obviously information security, so everything what is in violet, it's rather a task for information security. Then we are assessing the risk associated with this particular change. Then we have architecture planning. So obviously here we need to define security requirements. For example, if this is web application, we need to think about proper logging, proper access control, multi-factor authentication, etc. Then we go through the design phase, where we actually can think, okay, this is the time where we are expecting a development team to provide us threat model. And then obviously as information security, we execute review to make sure that this threat model is actually meeting all criteria which are being expected by our governance. Then we have coding and quality assurance testing. So obviously, before deployment, we want to make sure that threat modeling is being reviewed. Obviously, we are also adding additional controls, such as static or dynamic testing, such as secret scanning, penetration test, and probably many, many more. Once there is a deployment phase, we need to think, everybody probably is thinking about launching security monitoring. So making sure that we have controls in place, such as web application firewall, DDoS protection, if we are forwarding all logs to our data lake or any kind of CM solution, or perhaps if we have some proper automations in order to detect potential threats afterwards. And then maintenance. So obviously, annual penetration tests, constant vulnerability assessments, and so on. So when it comes to core assumptions and embedding these controls into the software development lifecycle, I would say that security is playing the role of reviewers of threat modeling. Security is also educating and guiding the development teams when it comes to threat modeling, as well as other security issues. Security is also enabling business and engineering, as well as security is treated as connector. So here, I'm referring to the very great book, which is The Connector Manager, highly recommended, published by Gartner, if I'm not mistaken, where actually where actually it's described how we can be a good managers to connect other people with each other and actually achieve the success. So here I think it's a very good analogy to the everything what we as information security experts should be doing within the internal organization. So when it comes to key participants in a threat modeling session, I would like to introduce 4 people. So at the left side, we have James. James is responsible for leading a development team. James is making sure that once he's invited, obviously, to the threat modeling session, then he needs to make sure that everybody who is supposed to be available on this session, who is supposed to provide information about architecture or about different features, is present on this session. Then James is also responsible for integration all mitigations which are happening and actually execution of these mitigations to make sure that they are into the development pipeline. Then we have Barbara. Barbara is also a software developer. However, she is a security champion. So she's heavily interested in security. Perhaps the company doesn't pay very well in information security, so it's maybe a little bit more work for her to be as a squad security champion. And she's trained by security team. She's facilitating threat modeling process. She's also advocate for all information security topics, especially this one related to secure software development lifecycle. Then we have Jadwiga. Jadwiga is an information security specialist. She's attending and facilitating the entire sessions, organizing them, making sure that there is a proper visibility for all risk and cybersecurity aspects related to this particular project. Jadwiga is also validating threat modeling, so she must know what are the possible threats, for example, associated to different types of application. If it's related to mobile application or other types of system, then this is the person who should be trained and aware of how possible mitigations shall be handled. Jadwiga is also helping other colleagues, especially George, the next one, to in prioritization of risk, which are being defined, to explain what would be potential impact. And obviously, from technical perspective, Jadwiga can help to also identify potential likelihood. Then we have George. George is a product owner. In my word, it's rather less technical person, rather business person who can provide us especially business context for threat modeling. So he can explain us what are the biggest possible problems from a business perspective. So obviously that might be heavily valuable, especially if we talk about scenarios. So what actually we are expecting from threat modeling? What would be the expected outcome? So we have 4 teams who are in the ideal world being involved into this particular session. They are working together. They are creating threat model, which consists, as I mentioned before, diagram plus table with all possible threats and scenarios which are being executed. And then, obviously, first and foremost, we have inputs for a penetration tester. So obviously, once we execute threat modeling before deployment on production, then we can make sure that penetration testers are understanding perfectly some scenarios which have been, for example, pointed out by product owner. Then it's a great input for Security Operations Center, because especially in the world where we have multiple systems with multiple dependencies and multi-connections between each other, we can find a way how, if that, for example, the particular security event, if it's related to the particular system, then how it can impact another part of the infrastructure. Obviously, we are also raising awareness of security challenges in development team, because the more we talk about security and threat models, then the more people are feeling engaged then it's also perfect audit evidence. As I mentioned previously, threat modeling can be also used for compliance purpose. And when it comes to discussions, for example, regarding technical risk assessment, it's a perfect audit evidence. Then we also want to understand the impact and likelihood of security threats, especially once we can evaluate possible security measures which are being applied. And obviously, we can consider our security controls if they are really minimalizing the risk, or there is perhaps anything else what we should add. A couple of words about engagement with business. So basically, it's very important that we understand the business logic of the application. And I've seen this in many organizations that that during doing threat modeling, not always business is involved. So I think it's important to actually understand the logic behind this, to understand the biggest possible threats, because maybe some aspects could be, for example, not that relevant from information security, but from business perspective, the logic might be completely different. So obviously, we want to understand business context. We also want to define what actually and from what we should protect the particular system, the particular application. Business can also help us to how to classify the system and what kind of data is being processed. And this is very important output when it comes to evaluation of risk. We also expect that business will help us to identify worst-case scenario from business perspective, as well as potential risk appetite. Perhaps we are using some legacy components, and in case of materialization of the particular security risk, the impact would not be that large. Obviously, the last but not least, we have also dependencies between assets, products, and other components and third parties. So I think that's pretty obvious that once we are creating threat model, we also want to make sure that we understand if there are any third-party elements which in case of any incident they might negatively impact for security of our product. So here we are going through the couple of aspects which I called as a maturing your threat modeling program. So firstly, I have focused a little bit more on security operations center. So everything what is happening around detections, around all possible incident handling stuff, and so on. So obviously, firstly, what we are trying to achieve, and I think it's incredibly useful, that we are always adding attack surface information to the threat model. So then we can actually see that, for example, the particular application from this site is available from the internet, from other sites is available just for particular customers. There are different mechanisms to actually achieve this state. And obviously, we are also training our SOC analysts in order to make sure that they can use it in case of incidents. So, for example, if they know that one of the applications or one of the servers is potentially compromised, then based on the threat model, they can see different connections, and they can evaluate if what's the likelihood that, for example, this particular threat has spread. Then obviously we have also application dependencies mapping. So especially once we have products which are interconnected to each other, it's valuable if we can actually see what are the different workflows, or perhaps when it comes to security incident, perhaps other systems can be also affected. Then when it comes to other fields, we are also referring here to the feeding risk register. So sometimes it might happen that within your threat model, you will identify security threats, which will be translating for security risk, which might be relevant for the business. And unfortunately, it might be not possible to fix this on a timely manner. So then obviously, it's very useful if you can build the process that this kind of risk is being transferred to the risk register. Risks, if significant, I guess, are being discussed on the risk committees, and then the conscious decision is being made. Obviously, we can also correlate high-severity threats across different models. So that's also, I think, another level of maturity, especially if you have different development teams. And sometimes there are connections between different applications. Then if you can actually connect also these threat models with each other, I think the result might be incredibly good. And last but not least, compliance security enhancement. So obviously, if you put this requirement of having threat model before every major change or before every push to production, and especially new applications, then I think it's going to significantly enhance your maturity within the information security management system. And very quickly about success criteria and measurable outcomes. So obviously, if we do threat modeling for some time, especially if you do this, like if you do already the review of existing applications from threat modeling perspective, you can actually see if there is any reduction when it comes to vulnerabilities. It's also impacting cost aspects, because the vulnerabilities which are being fixed, for example, at the design level, are costing organizations significantly less than, for example, vulnerabilities which are being fixed once the application is already on production, right? Obviously, it's also impacting patching aspects, enhancing trust. So, as I mentioned before, and this is perfect argument for all possible auditors. I'm personally going through more than 10 audits per year, and threat modeling and the entire governance over this process is always, from my perspective, impressive. These people. So obviously, last but not least, let's talk a little bit about security automation and how we can use artificial intelligence when it comes to threat modeling. So obviously, we are already thinking, and every large enterprise vendor of tools which are offering threat modeling future is already offering a lot of new features which are helping us to build better threat models. But what are the points which definitely are the future of successful threat modeling? So definitely automated threat identification, standardization of threat modeling reviews. So obviously, threat modeling is an assessment. It's a very subjective assessment. So every person, every information security specialist can do this differently. So definitely using some automation and AI models, we can make sure that all possible threats, in case of the particular types of application, are being considered. Then supporting less experienced developers in identifying threats. So this is also this is also something that I will show you a little bit in later. Smart threat prioritization per quickly calculated risk and assessment. So this is, if you embed threat model into the risk management process, then it would be also possible to calculate the risk like in the real life. And obviously, automated checklist generation. So at the end of this presentation, I'm gonna present you. It's unfortunately not live demo, because definitely it wouldn't work on Friday evening. So this is the Stride GPT. So this is non-commercial, open source software which everybody can use. It's also possible to use it through ChatGPT, but here we are internally running this in our environment. So basically, what is possible to be done here, it's we can upload the file, which is actually the screenshot of architecture of the particular application. Then we need to also select the type of application, for example, web application or mobile application or FIC client, whatever. And then we have what is the highest sensitivity level of the data processed by this application. So the tool is giving us a couple of options which are also modificable. Then there's a question, is application internet-facing? Because probably from risk perspective, it's incredibly important. And what application methods are being supported by this application? So I have generated fake threat model based on some banking application, and I have uploaded this particular diagram into Stride GPT, which is here like running internally in the organization. Just a recap. So we are also, once we onboarded this particular feature, this particular application, we are also training our security champions to make sure that, that they are not fully relying on this, because obviously it is a little bit like a Google, so you cannot trust everything what you will find in your browser. So once, obviously, you upload this particular diagram, then you got the prompt, which is like this description of this particular application. And as an outcome from threat model, you can see different scenarios, obviously based on the STRIDE methodology. So you have spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privileges, which I have cut here. So the tool is giving us potential scenarios which developers can use in order to actually check if these scenarios are possible to be executed in their environment. Also, there is also described potential impact. As I mentioned, this is just advisory tool. This is not something what we can all rely on. It also gives us a couple of more information. So, for example, it's also suggesting some improvements, as well as what is useful. And right now, perhaps it's not very advanced. However, we are hoping that it will move forward. That we are also getting some testing scenario, especially for which might be used by penetration testers. Last but not least, obviously, we are reminding also our InfoSec colleagues that we need to review these threats to determine if any of them can lead to the vulnerabilities which can subsequently be translated into risk. Thank you very much.